Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Comics Lounge. So glad that you could join us for another episode. We are happy to have you, and most importantly, we are talking some more King in Black. If you have not seen our episode about Web of Venom, Empire's End, Null is Coming, then you might want to go back and watch the video all about this book first. Now, with all that being said, we have Symbiote Spider-Man. And Symbiote Spider-Man has been in a few different iterations. There was the original Symbiote Spider-Man, then you had Symbiote Spider-Man Alien Reality, and now there's King in Black Symbiote Spider-Man. So Symbiote Spider-Man is this really awesome version of Peter Parker with the symbiote suit. And right off the bat, let's just talk about who is on this cover. So we'll go from left to right, top to bottom. So you've got the Black Knight. So he's going to be part of the King in Black series. You've obviously got Symbiote Spider-Man. You've got the Watcher. You then have this new kind of unnamed character. And truly just something out of your nightmares. Almost like a Slender Man-esque Venom. We've obviously got Kang the Conqueror, foe of the Avengers, and someone who seems to want to be in the MCU very soon. And then you've got Rocket. So, before I go into this book, there are spoilers ahead. We are approaching that 250 subscriber mark. So I'm just going to take a second to say that we are going to be doing a giveaway at 250 subscribers. We announced on our Instagram what book we would be giving away. And when we do that announcement video, that is where you will comment to earn a entry into that giveaway. So, with all that being said, this book is going to focus on these characters, all 6 of them. So let's dive right in. For those of you who don't know Symbiote Spider-Man, this is the little blurb. So after the first Secret Wars, Peter Parker returned home to New York City with a brand new costume he thought had been crafted by alien technology. It could respond to his every thought, shapeshift to mimic his civilian clothing, and even generate a seemingly endless supply of his unique webbing. Now, in his sleek all-black costume, Peter Parker balances his personal life, his photography job for the Daily Bugle, and his super heroics as he swings through the city as the amazing, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Though, unbeknownst to Peter, his alien costume may be more than meets the eye. So we've got Symbiote Spider-Man, The Sword and the Spirit, Part 1, and this is where it all kind of starts with the King in Black. So I will say right off the bat, Null is not in this book. This is kind of a book that's going to go into everything else behind Null. So the same way that this book told us that Null was here and that he's coming, this is kind of telling us all about what is going to be the heroic event that could take place in order to save the universe. And I guarantee if you have not read this yet, or even if you have, you were a little surprised with who is planning to save the universe. Let's go. So it all starts off in this insane asylum, as we all know, Ravencroft. And it starts with Alistar and his father. Obviously, his father is dead, but it is what it is. So, Alistar, if you know him, he is someone who is a spider slayer. He was trying to completely just get rid of Spider-Man and come up with different ways to kill him. The spider slaying robots from the 90s TV show is a great callback to talk about. So now the symbiote was in his father's, saying basically This was a lesser form and a lesser intimidating form to come to him as. So basically, instead of coming as a symbiote, I'm going to come as your dead father to your hospital bed in the insane asylum, so you can think you're even more insane. So then we fast forward a little bit to what looks to be the moon with the Watcher. And he kind of goes into like the idea of what the Watchers are, and that he's been watching over the Earth and Earthlings, humans, for thousands of years. And he gets beamed up. We then fast forward from him getting beamed up to Peter Parker saving this little boy, running after his balloon, and kind of just going over what he's about to do. So he saves a little boy, goes to the Daily Bugle, gets told by Jonah that he's late. Jonah tells him to go with Ned Leeds to Ravencroft Insane Asylum, and that's where everything kind of begins. So now you've got Kang the Conqueror in this really awesome role. So I don't want to ruin anything, so I'm not going to show you anything over here yet, but he has the Watcher hooked up to almost like this MRI brain reading machine, and he tells the Watcher that he is actually trying to save the universe. After the Watcher kind of told him that he was a time-traveling despot that had no place and was a worthless villain to the Avengers, Uatu basically was written off by Kang, and then all hell breaks loose. So not only does Uatu see the past, but he then kind of sees the future as well. So he sees what happened and everything that was going on before he existed, and which means he also saw the symbiote god Null. And then he starts seeing the future. And he says, "This is impossible. It sees me." So it, most likely, is referring to Null, the symbiote god. And Kang is trying to shut this machine off, and all of his voice commands aren't working, and as we know, technology sucks. So he's trying to shut it off with his voice, and boom. So boom goes the dynamite, and Kang decides he's just going to float off into space after this giant explosion, like nothing ever happened. He's looking back at his ship, saying fabulous, and we go from, once again, being in outer space to being back on Earth at the Ravencroft Institute, where Ned Leeds and Peter Parker just were arriving on the scene to see what was going on. So you've got Alistar right here, trying to figure everything out. This woman who is completely unaware that inside Alistar is no longer him. It's now a symbiote. It's now someone taking him over. And it says, "Your visitors are on the way up." And he says, "Well, that's great, but I've already put enough of a dose to basically dose everyone in the ventilation system. So whatever you're planning, I already planned to make all hell break loose." So of course she says, "What, you're insane?" And he says, "In my defense, this is an insane asylum," which he's not wrong about. And we go to Peter Spiderson's tingling, a solar eclipse happening, what looks to be like the spaceship exploding right in front of the moon. And Alistar looking at it and being pretty ominous, basically saying that it's a great display of the Shadow Realm and that something is about to go down, and that pretty much all of these scientists are going, or doctors and scientists are going to be going through the same thing that this one was going through. Monica, just a few minutes before, because she was obviously in the room where it seemed to first break loose. And he's clearly no longer Alistar. He says, "My lord will not be sorry. He gave me this second chance." So we still haven't really met who exactly this person is or what is going on, but we pretty much know his lord is the King in Black, Null. Peter notices that something insane is going on, and Ned has now been turned into one of these symbiote agents. So immediately, Peter goes into action and tries to figure out how to defeat him. So this was actually the pretty interesting dilemma, is that when he hit Ned's symbiote, Ned was caught off guard. And he says it right here. Gotta pull the punch not to do damage. That's still Ned in there. And he looks surprised. I wonder why. So that's all going to kind of play into what happens next when Mr. E comes out and says, hey, I'm Mr. E. So this is now Alistar being Mr. E. And of course, Spider-Man being the wisecracking jack butt that he is, basically says, really, Mr. E, that's all you could come up with? I don't even know where to start. So then the symbiote says, you, brother. So kind of interesting. And once again, brother, boom. He hits Mr. E, and Mr. E goes flying, and Mr. E is like, what just happened to me? Very confused. And he immediately says to Spider-Man, you're stronger than I thought. And then Spider-Man, of course, wisecracking again, I'm stronger than anybody thinks. So once again, Mr. E, this symbiote, is trying to get Spider-Man to understand, well, you are actually my brother, we're kin, and that's very not cool to hit your brother. So right about here, he says, sorry, brother, you didn't catch me off, or you don't catch me off guard twice, and his arm goes straight through him. So this is kind of leading back to Ned, when Ned was very confused, Ned's symbiote self. And he's obviously asking Spider-Man, why are you doing this? And Spider-Man immediately responds, well, you're the bad guy, hello. To which, as we learned from Web of Venom, Empire's End, Null does not see himself as the bad guy, and neither do any of his symbiotes. They see themselves as a necessary evil, so to speak. So Spider-Man, once again, is kind of caught off guard by that, and being called his brother, and he says simply, stop pretending that you are something that you are not. And he's talking to Spider-Man, and Spider-Man's like, hold on a second, I hit him because I caught him off guard. So once again, he goes back to just kind of feeling and not thinking, and just pounds him into a wall. So Mr. E goes flying, and this is where things get very interesting. So we talked about Black Knight being in this. This is where Black Knight throws his sword through Mr. E. And it's just so weird to say that, because like Mr. E is just such a not badass name. Black Knight is basically saying, oh, I saved the day. And Spider-Man's like, what are you doing here? Why did you come? So pretty much he's saying that he knows something that Spider-Man does not. Black Knight goes on to talk about the eclipse, telling basically Mr. E's responsible, and Mr. E has basically said this whole time, creation moves forward, uncreation runs backward. Work it out. And basically what he's saying is, the reason why there's a solar eclipse happening is all of a sudden creation is happening, and time goes forward and backward. You can create it either way. If you change the future, the past is going to rewrite itself. It's a very interesting concept that we're going to see. It looks like a lot of time travel is going to be happening in King in Black, especially with this guy, this sentence, and then just the events that are outlined in this, of the Watcher seeing the past and the future. It's going to be very interesting how time travel may or may not play a role in this storyline. So now we got Kang with this unknown ship, and this ship takes Kang in, and someone says hi. So let's see who's going to say hi. Well, we've met 5 of our cover characters. Who could it be but Rocket Raccoon saying that he's all by himself? So this is going to be very interesting. Where they're going to take this book will be very curious, and it's making me very curious. So Symbiote Spider-Man King in Black #2, that's this book. That cover looks phenomenal. We're obviously going to get more of these Mr. E characters, those like symbiote agents, and then Black Knight will play a major role, it looks like, in the Symbiote Spider-Man series, and he's actually going to have his own spin-off books as we roll through this series. The next Symbiote Spider-Man we're going to get is on 12/16, so December 16th, and the first King in Black book is going to be on December 2nd. So there's a little bit of time before we see another one of these books. I definitely wanted to go through it, get your thoughts, and just kind of share my first impression. First of all, this book is phenomenal. I loved reading it. I loved seeing the 3 different dynamics of it. The Kang side, the Alistar side, and then the Spider-Man side. And then how it all kind of molded together as it went on. So you have these 2 characters with each other. Then you've got Kang and Rocket. First off, you have these 2 characters with each other. And then you've got these 3 kind of figuring out what is happening. And it's kind of cool to be along for the ride and be an observer of a series instead of knowing what's going to happen and being like that one that's like, wow, how does he not know what's about to go down? Like, even we don't know what's about to go down with this. There is so much that happens in this one comic. Like I said, there's 3 different stories going on at the same time. There's a huge past, present, future that seems to be happening here. Not only with Kang and Uatu, but then you also have Alistar battling it out, and him saying pretty much when the eclipse hits, as matters progress in the future, it ripples back to the past. History rewrites itself. Or did you just think that creation only ran one way? That is very, like I said, ominous. That look on his face is just beyond insane, and that all kind of ties back into Peter and Ned talking just outside the Daily Bugle, basically saying, so he's a supervillain trying to fix his public image. Good, because that always ends well. So Alistar Smythe looks like he might play a pretty big role in this as Mr. E. Mr. E is a very interesting character in this book just to start, and it seems like we're going to see a lot more of him and his minions going forward. So I look forward to seeing what comes next, and as I said, December 2nd will be the next King in Black. We will see King in Black #1, Atlantis Attacks #5 will be a tie-in to this, and then the Union #1 will be a tie-in as well. So King in Black is the beginning of the end. Then you've got Agents of Atlantis. They're prepared for any threat, but nothing could prepare them for what's coming. And then the Union, as Null's forces unleash fury around the world, will one hero in the United Kingdom pay the ultimate price. So all of this is going to be very, very interesting. It's truly going to be something that you should definitely pick up. If you haven't already put it on your pull list, I definitely suggest that you should. With all that being said, this is Lounger Chris from the Comics Lounge. Keep it casual, friends, as if you could with all this happening.